Hey Froggy friends, Kirostyle here, welcome back to Umineko, Episode 1, Legend of the Golden Witch. Thank you so much for joining me here on stream, I really appreciate it. We are on the home stretch of Episode 1 of this game. In the last episode, 2 episodes ago, we discovered the 6 bodies in the shed. Then we went back to the mansion, and they tried to figure out who it was. There was a lot of thinking, there was a lot of arguing. Ava started an argument with Natsuhi, but Battler came to her defense, and they separated from the group, or Ava and Hideyoshi separated from the group. They were later found dead in their room, and shortly thereafter, Kanon and Kumasawa thought they heard something coming from the basement. So they went down there, and Kanon got stabbed by an unknown person. They were unable to find the person because they ran away, and they also found the burnt dead body of Kinzo in the incinerator. And so Kanon is currently being treated by Dr. Nanjo, but things don't really look good. So there's not very many characters left on the island alive. So how's this mystery going to end? I guess you're just going to have to wait and find out. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Umineko, you might be wondering, but if this is near the end of episode 1, then, like, so many characters are dead, there's 8 episodes, what's going to happen? I guess you're just going to have to find out. The game is very interesting that way. Alright, let's get going. In the end, Kanon-kun did not regain consciousness. Even though Dr. Nanjo and the rest did all they could to heal him. Of course, there was very little that could be done on an island like this without medicine or proper facilities. However, Kanon was the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only he could give us some kind of clue. However, at the time they carried Kanon away, it was already too late. Hey Euro, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. My sincere apologies. Without proper facilities, there was nothing I could do about such a serious wound. No, that's perfectly understandable. Thank you so much for giving it your very best. Dr. Nanjo's shirt had been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine the devotion with which he had tried to save Kanon's life, up until the last second. Jessica was crouched in the corridor, crying softly. She had probably been taking care of Kanon-kun until the moment of his death. George Aniki tried to approach her with words of comfort, but when Jessica pushed him away, he stopped trying to force her to talk and left her alone. If only I hadn't let Kanon-san go alone. Oh. Do not let that bother you. If you had been with him, you would probably have been attacked as well. He foolishly rushed on ahead and paid for his mistake. How can you say it like that? Kanon had spotted the culprit and bravely stood up to them. If only Kumasawa-san had gone with him, the culprit might have hesitated and chosen to run away. Emotion-filled words that I never thought I'd hear coming from Jessica's mouth tumbled out. Kumasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head. Jessica. You shouldn't talk to her now. It's the same for me, and probably you as well. Right, Battler-kun? We don't know what's going on, and it feels like our hearts are going to split open. There were tears in George Aniki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I'd done my crying all at once, so I didn't feel like crying anymore. However, I understood how great the pain in their hearts was. It's okay, Jessica. You'll be able to meet Kanon again soon. Stop it! I don't need you trying to console me like that. Beatrice will resurrect the dead and even love that has been lost. So you'll definitely be able to meet him soon. Then everyone will be able to live in peace. So the one who killed Kanon-kun, is this Beatrice who supposedly gave you that letter yesterday? Where is she? Where's she hiding? I'll find her and tear her apart. Tell me, you know who the culprit is, don't you? What do you know, and what are you hiding? Tell me, damn it! Milady, please stop. Beatrice exists. exists. Ugh. Damn it. Let go of me, Genji-san. Maria knows who the culprit is, and she's hiding their identity even though she knows. She must be telling them what we're doing and guiding them as they kill us. Jessica, be silent. Jessica grabbed at Maria. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calmed. The next thing I heard was the sound of Aunt Natsui slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful, sobbing voice resounded throughout the hall. Maria-chan, I know there's no way you're the culprit. You've been with us since the beginning, and there was no time for you to communicate with any culprit. So I want you to tell me something. This Beatrice who handed you the letter yesterday, who was she? Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had some remaining doubts about Maria. He didn't actually grab at her. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did. Aniki, I already asked her the same thing a second ago. Her answer was the same as before. I want to hear it from Maria's mouth. Who is Beatrice? Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe anyway. What do you mean by that? Could it be the culprit someone we know well? And you're keeping silent because you're covering for them for some reason? Who gave you that letter? I got it from Beatrice. I'll say it no matter how many times you ask. I got the letter from Beatrice. George Oni-chan, do you refuse to believe in Beatrice because she's not an opponent you can hit? You want to turn your feelings of helplessness into violence and beat someone up. So you won't be satisfied unless your opponent is human you can hit. So even if I tell you the truth, you won't accept it. So it's pointless for me to tell you. You won't believe. But I'll keep on saying it, because it's true. Beatrice exists. The door to the Golden Land will soon be opened. I'll go there. Beatrice promised. In that world, Mama's nice, and Papa is with us, and is also nice. I want to go there right away. Everyone is afraid of Beatrice. But that's only natural. So calm yourselves. Beatrice said so herself. By the time the typhoon has passed, I'll have ended everything, she said. Ow! Maria, I don't mind you being talkative, but let's leave it at that for now. I'll bet this is all a pretty happy situation for you, since you're always going on about how witches exist, but keep that to yourself for now. Don't try to force that on other people. I know I've been creeped out by this girl for a while now, but there really is something wrong with her. Don't you think so too, Badler? Genji-san? Kumasawa-san? What about you, Mom? Maria knows who the culprit is, and she's hiding it. Okay, maybe she hasn't done anything directly, but she's definitely working with the criminal. That's right, she's a spy. We can't let her stay with us any longer. Kihihi. Maria-chan, you must realize there are times when indiscreet discussion is best avoided. If you keep adding oil to the fire, even I will get very angry. Aunt Natsui glared at Maria with frightening eyes. Maria was used to Aunt Rosa's loud style of scolding, but she apparently hadn't built up a resistance to Aunt Natsui's quiet sort of scolding. She shrugged and kept her mouth shut. A desolate feeling filled the room. It felt as though things would get more complicated if anyone spoke. How many people have died? 6 people in Dad's group. After that, both Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, Kanon-kun, grandfather. There were a whole 18 people on this island, supposedly, and 10 of those people had been killed. That's more than half of us. And right now, there's absolutely no proof that the remaining 8 people will be safe. At any rate, this is no time to quarrel. Now that we are certain the culprit can enter and leave the mansion at will and strike out of nowhere, we must give our undivided attention to surviving until tomorrow. Hey, Twilight Red Mage, thank you so much for coming to the stream. Welcome, welcome. I agree strongly with Aunt Natsuhi. We can figure out who the culprit is at our leisure tonight. For now, though, we're better off finding a place to barricade ourselves in. As I said this, I pointed out the clock to everyone. It was already 8 o'clock at night. We had been receiving shocks over and over again since the early morning, and our bodies and minds were both completely tired out. There's still a long, long time until tomorrow. We needed to find some place to barricade ourselves in, so we could rest our bodies and get even the smallest amount of relief. I agree. Everyone is already pushing their mental and physical limits, myself included. I believe it would be wise to take that into account as we move forward. That's right. There's a high probability that the enemy's got the equivalent of a master key. Were Shannon, Kanon-kun, and Goda-san holding master keys? Yes. They were supposed to have them on their person during work. We didn't want to disturb the scene, so we didn't investigate that closely. We can't eliminate the possibility that someone stole a key from them. In the first place, we know the culprit may have visited the servant room at some point to unlock the garden shed shutter. It's conceivable that they obtained a master key from there early on. There were many servants serving the Ushiramiya family. Because of that, there were several master keys. Furthermore, every time one employee started or finished working, the keys were passed between servants. And we had to acknowledge that this had probably gotten a bit sloppy at times in the past. Even if they borrowed a bundle of keys from the pockets of one of the murdered servants, is there any safe place that even those keys can't open? Because of the nature of our job, we have been entrusted with keys to all of the rooms. All of them in the mansion, and in the guest house. So in other words, no matter where we hole up and lock ourselves in, it'd just be pointless. Fine, who cares about locking up? If you're gonna come, bring it on, damn it! I'll beat you at your own game. The enemy won't approach us from the front. I don't know about the first 6, but if we look at what happened to my parents and Kanon-kun, and even grandfather, the enemy has only gone after isolated people. They don't have the power to assault all of us openly in a secure room. That's right. It's just like Aniki says. And maybe Aunt Natsui's rifle can serve as a deterrent to stop them from attacking. I hope that is so, but... Maria, I know you want to say something, but keep it to yourself and stay quiet for a while. Maria probably wanted to say something about how witches weren't afraid of things like guns. But if she were to say it out loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy. I noticed and decided to put a stop to it. If I may, I do know of just one place that cannot be entered, even with the servant key rings. Where is that? That would be... the Master's study. I'm against this. I don't even want to think about going in Grandfather's creepy room. How many keys can gain access to that room? There are 2. I always have one on my person. The other was held by the Master himself, but just now I found this on the corpse in the boiler room. Genji-san took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened it, showing us the burnt and filthy study key. Then he showed it alongside his own key, which he had once lent to Natsuhi. Normally it would have been proper to leave the Master's key for the police, but because of the Master's orders to protect the safety of the study, I borrowed it for the time being. I see, which means that Kinzo-san's study is the only place where we could be safe. It would appear that way. I don't even want to think about being shut up in that strange room all night. But it appears we must acknowledge that his room is safer than anywhere else right now. Even though Grandfather locked himself up in that safe room, the culprit brought him out and killed him. We can't be certain that's truly safe. According to your theory, Grandfather cleverly found a way around that receipt trick and left the room of his own free will. If so, the room might be a good place to barricade ourselves in after all. You're too optimistic, Aniki. However, at the same time, I thought he brought up a pretty interesting point. After all, this gives us the chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed door had been opened. Hey Aru, welcome to the stream, thank you so much for stopping by. If we assume the culprit used some technique to kidnap grandfather from his study, they'd have to show us the same trick again if they want to assault us in the study. And that'd give us a chance to make the culprit prove how they did it right before our eyes. If she's really a witch, we'll be forcing her to use her little magic trick to open the door right in front of us. But that's probably impossible. If you spin the chessboard around, it's obvious the culprit is acting in a way that'll make us think that they're a witch. If she really is a witch, all she's gotta do is appear in front of us and wow us with a colorful display of magic. Since she's avoided doing that, everything must be the work of a fake witch who wants us to think that she's real. Therefore, a culprit who used a technique other than magic to defeat the closed room couldn't open the door before our eyes. Is grandfather's room big enough to stuff 8 people in? Yes. There is a bed, a sofa and blankets, so while it is not luxurious, it would be more than suitable for spending the night. There is also a sink, a bathroom, a refrigerator, and a liqueur cabinet. Whoa, that's incredible. But isn't that weird? You're saying he built another house inside his house? That's pretty cramped for the last house of someone like our grandfather, who bought a whole island and realized all of his dreams. That's right. After some point in time, father probably couldn't feel at peace in any other place, even inside the mansion. We always sneered about how he shut himself up in there, and this time we're the ones who are gonna shut ourselves up. Ha! Jessica spat the words out. Jessica-chan, it sounds like you'd rather go search for the culprit than stay shut up somewhere. Of course, I don't think we'll be able to find them if we just start searching on our own. In the end, we can't do anything but wait. That doesn't matter where we wait, does it? I'm not gonna run away or hide. Why don't we just take it easy in the parlor, watching TV or something while we wait for this Beatrice-sama to appear? It's perfectly fine if she doesn't appear. There's no need for us to be the ones who expose the culprit. Well said. We shouldn't take needless risks before the police arrive. Thank you, Dr. Nanjo. I think we should move to Father's study. True, we have no proof that it's safe, since Father was taken out of there. However, I can't deny the possibility that, as Battler couldn't reason, Grandfather left the study of his own accord and was attacked outside. A while back, I proposed that strange theory as a stopgap measure. But just as Aunt Ava said, even though the trick would be possible, I couldn't explain what motive could have made Grandfather sneak out of his own study in such a troublesome way. Plus, Grandfather couldn't even have used that trick unless he knew the receipt was wedged in the door. Aunt Ava hadn't pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd the theory was. So does that mean the sealed door formed a closed room, just as Aunt Ava claimed? Is it an undeniable fact that Aunt Natsui was the culprit? If Aunt Ava were here now, she'd probably make that claim openly and blow my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet that all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, had to be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than just staying shut up in the parlor and hoping nothing would go wrong. But wait, have we been safe only because we've been shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moving to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? It's useless, it's all useless. My flimsy head is about to break out with a fever. If I keep spinning the chessboard around, right and wrong will keep switching places over and over, and I won't be able to believe anything. When it seems like the culprit is one of the 18, I want to believe in Beatrice. Once I start believing in Beatrice, I start wanting to find the culprit amid the 18. If that keeps spinning around forever in the end, my thoughts won't have taken one step from where they started. How far back in the past was it that Kirie-san taught me about chessboard thinking? That concept of examining the situation by spinning it around and thinking from the enemy's side. I seem to remember being so interested by it back then. I used it to guide all my thinking. By the way, Kirie-san was Dad's co-worker back then. I never dreamed that she'd someday be added to our family. Didn't Kirie-san tell me something once? I get the feeling she once said that while this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things, it certainly wasn't all-powerful, and it wouldn't be good to rely on it too much. Chessboard thinking is my own interpretation of something called game theory, which I read about in a book long ago. It's a very interesting subject, so you should tackle it yourself when you go into college, Badler-kun. I really want to try it. If I could study and perfect my chessboard thinking, it'd be fun to be able to read into any opponent's moves, wouldn't it? But you can't believe in it blindly. Game theory is a very deep and complicated subject. Chessboard thinking is just my interpretation that skims the surface of game theory. In order to thoroughly read your opponent's moves like you're imagining, you need to study your opponent. Additionally, while chessboard theory is convenient and practical, it isn't perfect. It has many weak points despite its convenience. Weak points? Yes, chessboard thinking is founded upon game theory. When you thoroughly investigate game theory, it boils down to math. Do you know what the weak point of math is? It's noise. In math, when you write 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, that process will always result in 1 plus 1 equals 2, no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there's absolutely no noise mixed in. But, for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji are a good example. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by the changes between time periods. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. Because the rules of chess are fixed, when a pair of experts are discussing one particular layout, it's possible they could reach the same conclusions, whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible that a discussion about the same layout would have changed as well. That's right. Events in the world of humans are normally full of noise. Aren't human emotions that way? Even if the exact same thing occurs more than once, there's no guarantee that humans will always act in a predictable fashion. The moment we try to use a math-based theory to predict someone's actions, we must be aware that a theory has built-in weaknesses and limits. Simply put, chessboard thinking is extremely weak against noise and fickleness, as well as mistakes or incorrect knowledge. That's right. Kiryu-san definitely said that. Chess has always been a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight with the same conditions for victory. That's why it's possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It's possible to read your opponent because you can always suppose they'll make the best moves they can find. But what if your opponent is fickle, or a bit tired? It makes a move that can hardly be called the best. Or, what if this game actually has a special rule? Some unknown thing that only the enemy knows about and can use? In fact, what if the opponent actually has some other goal than winning? Think from your enemy's perspective. That's the basis of chessboard thinking. Which means if you misread your enemy, the answer you draw from this process will be complete rubbish, useless. So far, I've used chessboard theory to get several vague bits of information about the culprit hiding behind this case. Or so I think. However, I don't know anything about the culprit. Am I just playing around in a labyrinth of thought? If Kiryu-san were here at a time like this, she'd probably be able to notice something with her much sharper thinking ability. Until the very last moment, Jessica resisted moving into grandfather's study. But in the end, Aunt Natsui persisted and we decided to move there. Everyone was completely wrapped in paranoia by now. Kumasawa-san had prepared dinner at one point, but during the time we were discovering the deaths of George Aniki's parents, both the kitchen and the parlor had been left empty. Someone suggested that the food might have been poisoned while we were gone. Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa-san had taken the trouble to make for us. The manner in which the first 6 were killed was still unknown, but it certainly could have been poison. Certainly that would allow even a single person to carry out the murder of 6 large adults. Furthermore, this idea made it easy to imagine there only being a single culprit, one who'd be afraid about Natsui's rifle. And this was very good for our emotional stability. But the fatigue and hunger were even harsher than we'd imagined. Then, Kumasawa-san made a proposal, and we all went together to the kitchen. There we gathered some canned food and other things that'd be hard to poison to take in with us. All of Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us with just a little dinner on this savage day regrettably came to nothing. The food piled up on the serving cart looked just a little sad. We all started climbing the stairs. Aunt Natsui, who was in the lead, warily stared into the darkness with both eyes and the barrel of the gun. Once we dragged ourselves up to the third floor, just as Aunt Natsui had warned us of beforehand, there was a mixture of chemical smell and a sickly sweet aroma, a stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating into our heads. Hey Lay, thank you so much for coming to stream. Thanks for summoning Kirby. Welcome, welcome. Oh, I should give you a shout out too while we're at it. Actually, I haven't been giving shout outs today. My bad. We'll visit Lei, very cool VTuber. Plays a lot of cool games, playing Pokemon recently. I see, this kind of stench would probably give you a headache if you were shut in with the whole night. I know it's a little late, but I'm with Jessica. I vote against going into Grandfather's study. It felt like the stench was floating out from this magnificent door. It was the door to the forbidden study, which should defend against any who would enter. When Genji-san unlocked the door, Maria stared at the door and the doorknob with great interest. Incredible door. It looks old and strict, like it'd stop any jokes cold. A perfect door for Grandfather's study. The power to ward off spiritual menaces is strong here. Beatrice probably couldn't open this door. Oh? What does that mean? Maria pointed at the doorknob. A scorpion crest. No, a design like a magic circle arranged around a scorpion was inscribed there. That design, that's right. Isn't it just like those keychain charms Maria gave Jessica and me yesterday? The fifth magic circle of Mars is a strong ward against magic. Additionally, this magic circle was very diligently constructed and is full of power. Such a magic circle can be quite troublesome to beings of magic like Beatrice. Isn't that comforting? Are you saying we can escape even Beatrice's clutches in this room? Our little witch here sure is reliable. Then how did Beatrice get Grandfather out? Just as badly reasoned, Beatrice can't go inside. However, she has both magic and familiars. Using them, she might have been able to get Grandfather to leave the study of his own accord. Ah, I've read about that in manga. I've seen a bunch of scenes where vampires were frightened of crosses, so they couldn't get close. But their familiars were just fine, so they made their familiars attack. Those scorpion keychain charms I gave you yesterday also had the fifth magic circle of Mars on them. The power dwelling within them was weak, but they should be enough to protect you until we leave the island. Although it sounds like you've lost yours, right? Hehehe. Scorpion key charms. Yeah, the charm I gave you yesterday was something I got from Maria. I heard it would repel magic if you put it on your doorknob, and at the time I thought maybe it'd be better if you had it. Is that so? I thought it was an odd thing for you to be carrying around. Aunt Natsui put that on her doorknob? Yes. Last night, after hearing about it from Jessica, I hung it from the doorknob on the inside of my door. Then Aunt Natsui, you're really fortunate. If you did that, Beatrice probably couldn't even lay a finger on you yesterday. I think Beatrice must have been really annoyed. Beatrice, annoyed? Couldn't lay one finger. Natsui thought back on the eerie scribble she'd seen that morning, as though someone had been tearing at the outside of her door with blood-soaked hands, and gasped in surprise. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice tried to enter through the door to Natsui's own room, but the magic repelling charm had been hanging from the inside, so she couldn't break through the door. So she was annoyed, so she scratched at it. Quit it, don't talk about that. Witches don't exist. The culprit does. And they're human, just like us. If you need proof, why don't we dice her up and see if her blood's real? Damn it. Damn it. How could you do that to Kanin-kun? Genji unlocked the door. 8 people entered Kinzo's study. Grandfather's study. I'd heard rumors about it beforehand, so I wasn't that shocked. He had done nothing more than fortify it thoroughly with his occult hobbies. If Grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pup idols, these walls might be buried beneath idol posters. Even if I didn't understand, I did realize that this room was a bundle of all his pastimes. Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of his creepy medicine and the sweet stench that seemed to melt my head. When the door was closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see. So this is the auto lock that's activated whenever the door is closed. And there were only 2 keys that could open this door from the outside, both of which were in this room. In other words, it had become a closed room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now the auto lock. This 4th door had the most significant lock yet, and this was doubtlessly a closed room. Just to make absolutely sure that the room was secure, we checked for all ways in or out. The window was tightly locked. That should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking over all the walls. After all, we had talked about there being a hidden door in this room, but we couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though we called it a study, it wasn't really a single room. It could be divided up into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet-bathroom section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see, the study really does have enough in it to live in. Now I see how Grandfather could live his whole life in this room without ever leaving. It seemed Grandfather wasn't in the habit of watching TV because there was no television or even a radio in this room. We can't do anything except pass the time listening to the sound of the rain until tomorrow morning. Dr. Nanjo looked closely at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently the partly finished chess match he'd been playing with Grandfather until yesterday. Hey Armand, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for coming by. The black had the white pretty well cornered, and looked like checkmate would be reached within a few moves, the last part of the endgame. Even though checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and in the end was never completed. Kinzo-san, it seems we weren't able to see this match through after all. Dr. Nanjo. I was Kinzo-san's friend for a long time, but I never knew about more than half of him. I believe 2 Kinzos existed, a wise one, and one trapped by some madness. I never understood anything about him. Especially when it came to Beatrice-sama, it would seem like his personality changed. In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It wasn't massive like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room, and so much of his time, talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice to Grandfather in the first place? Right now, you couldn't just explain it away by saying it was a story made by the parents to frighten children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we brought from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself or someone pretending to be her, whether they were a witch or a human, that was besides the point. The woman in this portrait was strongly related to the roots and background of this case. You couldn't talk about this case without talking about her. That's right. Mom, you picked up the culprit's letter in Aunt Ava's room, right? Yes. I still haven't opened it. Let's give it a try. Aunt Natsu took out that western envelope. Genji-san pulled a paper knife out of a drawer in the study desk and handed it to her. While watching her open it, George Aniki grimaced slightly. After all, it was a letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered. There was a good chance its contents would say something unbearable to Aniki. Aunt Natsui also seemed to realize that, so she glanced over the contents first without reading it out loud. We were a little frightened she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily. What does it say? There is one unpleasant sentence. It must be trying to provoke us. Natsui, after deciding the contents could be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at it at the same time. Praise my name. What the hell? That's annoying. It's probably Beatrice declaring herself the victor. Damn it. I'll bet you were hoping another weird magic circle would show up. It wasn't a magic circle, but my expectations haven't been betrayed. Hehe? What could it mean? I wonder if she wants to tout her own existence. That seems reasonable. With this letter, we now know that the author of last night's letter is the culprit. I think the identical envelope is more significant than what is written here. Without a doubt, this is the type of envelope and sealing wax that the master used. Oh, I don't know what's going on anymore. This is the first time I've seen anything like this since I started working for the Ushirimiya family. Going by last night's letter, Beatrice is claiming to be grandfather's oldest confidant. Grandfather often said the same thing in the past, right? I spoke to Genji-san and Kumasawa-san, who nodded together. Guess that means you two know more about her than anyone except grandfather. Could you tell us? For a long time, I've purposely avoided this topic. But now that it has come to this, I can no longer do so. Genji, tell us everything you know. Genji-san didn't answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge, or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been deified among the servants. He had probably been very close to grandfather in his occult hobbies, so there was a good chance he'd been indoctrinated with even weirder things that had increasingly come to deify the witch. As father's most trusted servant who had sworn loyalty to him, he might be the most influenced by the illusion of the witch that grandfather had created. So there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could speak, but it would definitely cause a backlash, so it's better if he kept his mouth shut. And it wasn't like we'd believe him anyway. Something along those lines. A short while ago, Maria had been more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly, and that had earned her a scuffle with Jessica. It was natural for Genji-san to keep his silence. Was she father's concubine? His concubine. That could be possible. For ordinary poor people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively from a moral perspective, it's also an unmaintainable financial situation. That isn't the case for the very rich. It's possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real wife. You can't deny the possibility that grandfather had another woman in his life besides grandmother. Maybe, when grandmother was alive, I hear she was pretty sure of it. She thought he was cheating on her. I always thought she meant grandfather's imaginary witch. Now this is getting really interesting. You told me, didn't you, Genji-san? You said Beatrice had been working for grandfather since before the mansion was finished. I heard that the construction of the mansion was completed in Showa 27, 1952. That means this person called Beatrice was in a relationship with grandfather since at least 30 years ago. Could that concubine of 30 years ago, or maybe a relative or hidden child with that person, hold some kind of grudge and be planning revenge? I see, this is starting to sound just like your standard Western mansion mystery. It's a filthy topic, but the easiest line of reasoning to accept. What do you think, Genji? The master surely had feelings of deep love for her. There could be no mistake that he cared for her more than his late wife. Who is this person called Beatrice? And what's she doing now? I have heard that she passed away before the mansion was completed. She's already dead? Yes. The master was deeply stricken by grief at her loss. He devoted himself to the art of black magic as a means to revive her. The master loved Beatrice-sama from the bottom of his heart. It was that madness which drove him to do all that you see here. As Genji-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at this room filled with signs of grandfather's madness. We were all at a loss for words. Normally, black magic seems like it'd just be creepy, and it's really hard to imagine why someone might be so enraptured by it. Since Kinzo was just an eccentric who had restored the Ushirimiya family amidst his madness, nobody had tried to understand him. The only thing on grandfather's mind had been the loss of a beloved woman, and his inescapable sorrow. Earlier, this room had seemed creepy, but in an instant, it had changed into something we could understand completely. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. It all existed simply because he wanted to revive the face of a single woman who had left this world over 30 years ago. The master only told me about Beatrice-sama's story once, when he was very drunk. Although I have forgotten the details. It was a deep, deep love, enough to make a woman like me jealous. When Kinzo-san succeeded the headship of the Ushirimiya family, his marriage to his late wife had already been decided by the few surviving family elders. So, he was forced into a marriage with some woman who would benefit the Ushirimiya family. That is correct. Kinzo-san was installed as the head who would revive the family and had to bear the entirety of that heavy responsibility. I do not pretend to know the details of when or where Kinzo-san first met her. Guess it'd be rude to say any more than that. That was when grandfather truly fell in love for the first time. Just how deep was his affection for her? That was easy to see just by looking around us. This room was covered with piles upon piles of things having to do with black magic. And grandfather spent every day shut in here, immersed in his research and isolated from the outside world, never regretting 1 minute of it. You couldn't help but recognize the depths of grandfather's love for Beatrice. I had it all wrong, Genji-san. What do you mean by that? I've always thought that maybe you servants believed blindly in the witch because you were influenced by grandfather's creepy black magic hobby. But that's not how it was, right? By acting as though Beatrice's soul had at least been restored and existed inside this mansion, they might have hoped to soothe grandfather's heart. With closed eyes and the expression of one remembering something from the distant past, Genji had broken his long silence. In making that confession, he probably felt like he was betraying his one and only master in the most serious way, even though that person was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch, and she is in the mansion even now. Genji had said it, had believed it, had made people believe it, and would take that with him to his grave. That might be the last service he could offer up to his master. The legend of the witch, the mysterious tale of Rokenjima that was still whispered of amongst the servants. Its true nature was a sad lie. No, it was an act of kindness towards grandfather, who had lost the person he loved above all else. I remember denying the witch's existence in front of father on multiple occasions. Now I finally understand how much that must have wounded him. Right now, I can understand very well. If I thought I could revive Shannon using black magic, I'd immediately become the next owner of this room and start researching. Aniki. Another strand of tears dripped from George's eyes. Maybe his tears were infectious. Tears rose to Jessica's eyes too, and she sniffled. Beatrice has said it. Very soon, she will be able to revive people. You'll be able to meet them, she said. Very soon the door to the Golden Land will be opened. In the promised Golden Land that glitters gold, the souls of all the dead will be resurrected, along with the love that has been lost. Then I will sleep in a world of peacefulness for all time. Did she say that? The Beatrice who gave you the letter? You don't believe, do you? If only grandfather were here, I'm sure he'd be happy. I'm sure he'd be jumping for joy now that Beatrice is about to be revived. In that case, I believe. If grandfather gave up half his life for this research, trying to resurrect the soul of the woman he loved, and spending the rest of his life believing, I'll believe too. Paddler? When you love a single woman for so long, The people around you catch on to it and it becomes the truth. Maybe you could say they're just being polite for the sake of your feelings. But right here, now, I'd like to call that magic. It isn't just being polite. It really is magic. She's a witch. It looks like nobody can see Beatrice after all. Some time passed. As we listened to the sound of the rain, we considered what kind of love and madness must have possessed the owner of this room as he spent half of his life in here. If you ask me as a woman, while I'd like to be understanding of father's feelings of true love, it did leave mother in an awkward position. Huh, I agree. Cheating is cheating. No way to make it pretty. Yeah, that's right. Gotta feel sorry for grandmother. So, have there been any rumors about a child between Beatrice and grandfather? The keyword Beatrice has been hidden in every corner of this case, so it's natural to suspect some relative of hers. No, I've not heard of anything like that. If there was one, a memento of his most beloved person, he surely would have given them all of his affection. Since he ended up immersing himself in black magic instead, maybe we should assume there was no such child. Come to think of it, that reminds me of a rumor I heard. You know it, right? A story about how grandfather heavily supported an orphanage called the Fukuin House. Enough of that. That is nothing more than slander, which would desecrate father. Tell us, Aunt Natsui. I think even you'd agree this is no time to hide things from each other. It's a worthless story. Father made massive donations to an orphanage and had the orphans employed as servants at the head family to give them some on-the-job experience. The story in question is simply some drivel spread by fools, claiming that father was using those orphans for some filthy hobby. For a while, some guys even said he was collecting human sacrifices for his black magic. And he really is doing weird experiments and ceremonies in this room all the time, so I half believed it myself. And these servants who came from the Fukuin house are... There are several of them, but Shannon and Cannon were the two scheduled during the family conference shift. To resurrect Beatrice, he brought in servants from an orphanage as human sacrifices? After all, everyone grandfather selected as a servant was young, about the same age as Shannon or Cannon-kun. I was sure it was because father had some bizarre hobby. Jessica, mind your words. When Aunt Nazi scolded her, the atmosphere instantly went sour and everyone fell quiet. However, something was tugging at the back of my mind. Sacrifices. Sacrifices. Human sacrifices brought over from an orphanage. What is it? Freaky words like sacrifices don't pop up often, and yet I've seen or heard that word recently. Some part of my memory is tugging at me. Hey, Beatrice, what do you know? I had arrived in front of the portrait of Beatrice. It wasn't as massive as the one in the entrance hall, but that portrait, which must have been drawn by some famous painter, was still just intimidating in this smaller size. Below it, just like in the entrance hall, was the epitaph that supposedly hinted at the location of the hidden gold. Ah. Sacrifices. Here. What the hell, Battler? You're creeping me out. 6. Sacrifices. Ah! Ah! Both of my eyes were wide as plates. Everything's been predicted right there from the very beginning. Everyone crowded around. And the same expression of shock rose to all of our faces. That's right. It's right there, in the epitaph. On the first twilight, offer the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. There's no doubt! 6 people died in the beginning. And even on the shutter where the magic circle is drawn, no, where the Hebrew is written, it mentioned the offering of sacrifices. I've been saying that from the beginning. That's right, Maria said it right at the start. Right after we found the 6 bodies, when Maria was in the parlor watching TV, she said it. The culprit isn't human. It's just the sacrifices chosen by the key. This has nothing to do with the location of the hidden gold. It's the instructions for a resurrection ceremony using black magic or something. After all, this epitaph requires a large number of deaths. It sure does. Even reading through it quickly, there'd be 6 plus 2 plus 5, 13 people who must die. How many people are normally on this island? It changes depending on the shifts for the servants. But there's father, my husband, Jessica, and me. And 2 or 3 servants. Today and yesterday there were 5 of them, but there aren't normally that many. Which means that normally, there wouldn't be enough sacrifices to carry out this ceremony. No, wait. There's that rumor the grandfather was collecting servants from an orphanage to be used as sacrifices in some creepy ceremony. So what does this mean? He increased the number of servants to increase the number of sacrifices, and waited for the annual family conference where even more people would gather? Isn't now the only time of year this ceremony could be held? When Jessica screamed this, Maria broke out in that creepy laugh, looking truly pleased. Haven't you ever heard of people making bets to test their fate? Like throwing a sandal and saying if it lands right side up, tomorrow will be sunny. Or saying that tomorrow will be a good day if a coin lands heads up. There are many little superstitions like that. Sometimes when your luck is good and you get bored, you roll the dice and get 3 sixes. You want to believe it's some portent of some miracle. When flipping a sandal, you have at worst a 50% chance. Even if you get it right side up, it's not worth that much. But if you carelessly roll 3 dice and they all come up 6, you might think it's a small miracle. Magic works the same way. You must pray earnestly for an extremely unlikely result. Then the feelings from all those stored up prayers gain magical power and become incarnate. The magic the grandfather was trying to perform was probably like that. The key randomly selected sacrifices in a lottery. So to reduce the chance that he himself was selected, he chose the day with the greatest number of people on the island to carry out the ceremony. Ridiculous! Are you saying that this entire situation was caused by a mere ceremony for some bizarre magic? Natsu yelled. She couldn't quell the fear that a scorpion charm might be the only reason she was still safe. If I hadn't received that charm from Jessica and hung it from my doorknob, would I have been killed, mixed in along with those 6? And the strangest part is, even though I hung the charm from the inside of my door, they couldn't get through the door. The culprit noticed the charm from outside the door and gave up trying to open it. A human couldn't have perceived that. A charm meant to stop something that was not human had done exactly that. Impossible. Impossible, impossible! But Natsui-san, the epitaph certainly does continue to fit even after that. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. Could this be talking about Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama? Painful as it may be, we must reach that conclusion. And after the culprit killed them, they left the words from the third twilight in a letter there. That's right. After carrying out the second twilight, they left the third twilight in that place. The third twilight was just like Aunt Natsui had just read. On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. Ah, if you read it that way, it just keeps going on, doesn't it? On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Gouge the head and kill. George Aniki's parents were killed with those demons' ice picks gouged into their heads. But if they were the second twilight, someone else must have been gouged in the head. That's grandfather. He was burned in that incinerator, and our eyes were so drawn to that part we didn't notice. But his forehead... No, his head had been gouged. Grandfather was the victim of the fourth twilight. Then Kanin-kun was... On the fifth twilight, gouge the chest and kill. We thought Kanin-kun's case was an unexpected encounter with the culprit. But that's wrong. From the very beginning, they planned to lure someone out alone and drive something through their chest. If the culprit has followed the epitaph this far, does that mean 3 people still have to die? On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. Yes. You could read it that way. Well, I wonder about that. After those 3 die, it reaches the 9th twilight. Take a look. On the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive, and none shall be left alive. We're all gonna be killed by Beatrice? I don't get it. Wouldn't that mean everyone dies no matter how many people there are? What was Grandfather after? Doesn't this mean the ceremony would kill him too, no matter what? It's okay if no one's left alive. On the 10th twilight, we finally arrive at the Golden Land. On the 10th twilight, at Journey's End, you shall attain to the power of the Golden Land's treasures once and for the last time. The witch shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures. Grandfather wasn't afraid of dying. Look at the 2nd and 3rd of the 4 treasures. One shall be the resurrection of all the dead souls. One shall be the resurrection of the love that was lost. So Grandfather believed he would eventually be revived, even if he died partway through the ceremony. Ridiculous, that's insane. When you die, it's over, right? The dead don't come back to life. Isn't that a miracle humanity's been chasing after for thousands of years and still hasn't accomplished? So this is what it means? Something like you'll be able to meet them in the afterlife or they'll be restored? If what you're saying now is right, would that mean that Grandfather, whose remaining life is slim, and who's been driven mad by love, is committing suicide? No, a massive forced group suicide? Genji, is such a thing possible? I don't know. The Master is a man who sometimes has the wisdom to see 1,000 years into the future. However, there are times when that appears to be nothing more than madness to commoners such as myself. Okay, should we take that for a yes? What do you say, Kumasawa-san? I don't know anything. That's right, I don't know. Do you think I would be on this island today if I did know? I would have faked an illness or done anything to take the day off, that's right. What about your opinion, Dr. Nanjo? You've been Grandfather's friend for many years. I feel the same as Genji-san. Kinzo-san was a man who far surpassed ordinary people. I've even felt a sort of inhuman power from him at times. Even I don't know what Kinzo-san was thinking when he wrote that epitaph. All we can say is that even if Father did write the script, someone else is carrying it out. That's right. At the very least, there's another culprit who attacked Grandfather in Kanenkun. Furthermore, that person is still continuing the crimes, just as the epitaph says. The letter in the beginning that we didn't think deeply about. What was it that was written there? We thought back to the recitation of the letter last night. Beatrice had proclaimed something inside it. She had proclaimed that according to her contract with Kinzo, she would collect everything of the Ushime family as interest. But then she had also revealed a special clause. If someone discovered the location of the gold Grandfather had hidden, that right would be lost. When the letter was read, Grandfather was still alive, but at the time it had already been sealed with wax by the head's ring, which meant Grandfather handed the ring over to Beatrice while he was still alive. If we take a straightforward approach, maybe we should assume Beatrice is carrying out that strange contract, with Grandfather guaranteeing her that right. In other words, this was the same as Grandfather knew of and approved the contents of that letter. In other words, it's basically a joint message from Beatrice and Grandfather, telling us that Beatrice will start collecting interest if we don't solve the riddle. In other words, Grandfather and Beatrice were demanding that we try and solve the riddle of the epitaph. And if we couldn't, they were saying the massacre would be carried out according to the epitaph. What does that mean? What do they want? I don't have a clue what it means. Look! Another letter from Beatrice! Huh? What did you say? Maria was pointing at the top of the table where the canned food everyone had been eating just now still lay. A Western envelope from Beatrice certainly was sitting there. But so what? What in the... Aunt Natsuki let out a hysterical cry, looking between her own hand and the table, because the envelope she had just opened was still grasped in her hand. So why is there still an envelope on the table? What the hell? What's going on, Maria? Where did that envelope come from? Just now, I looked, and it was lying there. Ugh. I don't know anything. Anything! This isn't funny. There's only the 8 of us in here. There's no way some 9th person snuck in. There wasn't enough time during the few seconds that we gathered around the portrait, right? Get back, all of you. Back against the wall. Natsu was pointing the rifle at Genji and the others bellowing at them. Genji-san was overpowered, his face looking like he didn't have a clue what was going on. Of course, I felt the same, but in a few moments later I reached the same conclusion Natsui had. Until just a few seconds ago, there had been no letter like this on the table, and nobody entered this room. That means someone among us placed it there during the few seconds when everyone was looking away, preoccupied with the portrait. Balor-kun, open that envelope and read what's inside. Sure. I picked it up. It was still sealed with wax. Even without disturbing its contents, I realized this was an as yet unopened envelope, an unknown envelope. Without relying on a paper knife, I tore it open and pulled out the letter inside. The contents were as follows. Are you enjoying the riddle of Kinzo-sama's epitaph? As you are all probably aware, you have very little time remaining. Please abandon any naive hopes of escaping after the storm passes. This game can only end with my victory, or yours. When time runs out, I will win by default. There will be no ties. Make sure that you do not misunderstand your current situation. That's what it says. It isn't clear who put this letter there. However, I've been able to narrow down the list of suspects. It's you all. Madam, that's just too horrible. Just before I moved towards the portrait, I set down a can of food here. At that time, there definitely wasn't anything as strange as this letter there. At the time, Jessica, George-kun, and Balor-kun were already in front of the portrait. And they didn't leave the spot in front of the portrait until the letter appeared. So the person who set that letter down is one of you four. Beatrice is here. We aren't Beatrice. Beatrice exists. Silence! I don't know whether I should suspect one of you or all of you, but without a doubt at least one among you is the culprit. That's right! There can't be a 19th person. There's no way witches exist. Even when Kanen-kun was killed. Yeah, that could only be explained if Kumasawa-san was the one who did it. The truth is that Kumasawa-san entered the boiler room with Kanen-kun and killed him, and that she lied saying he had already fallen when she got there. You're making a mistake, milady. Why would I do something like that? I don't have the slightest idea how my parents were killed in that closed room. When they were killed, everyone except for the servants had an alibi. The only ones who didn't were the servants. But does that really mean it's okay to suspect them? Yes, now that you mention it, they have no alibi for any of the cases. Ugh. Should we really be so quick to make that judgment? But this time, in this room, in this place, in this moment, in this minimally small bit of time and space, it's obvious. Only one of the four of them could have set the letter there in our blind spot. We can't tell who put it there, but it's obvious that one of the four did. Natsui-san, please, calm yourself. A lot has happened today. I understand how much strain is on your mind right now. Dr. Nanjo, it truly pains me to call you suspicious. However, you are father's personal doctor and his closest friend. You've been by his side for many years, and you might even know about Beatrice. Could you be hiding some sort of old obligation? Of course not. Calm yourself. It was pitiful to watch Dr. Nanjo frantically pleading his innocence. It was probably a normal reaction that anyone would give if they were suspected. Kumasawa was the same. Ever since Jessica voted her suspicions of Kumasawa murdering Kanen, Kumasawa had been totally flustered. That was why Genji's still calm appearance looked so bold. Natsui pointed the barrel of the gun. Genji, you were grandfather's #1 subordinate. Was Beatrice an illusion you showed to father, with you as the performer? If by suspecting me you recognize me as the master's greatest servant, then I count it as a great honor, regardless of the circumstances. However, I am not the one who put the letter there. Hey Ryuji, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by. You expect us to just accept that? You must be the ringleader. Maybe Kumasawa and Dr. Nanjo are your accomplices. And Maria-chan too. Not content to suspect just the adults, Aunt Natsui pointed the gun relentlessly at Maria too. But Maria acted as though nothing had happened. Or maybe she thought she would be fine even if she was shot. Maria-chan. By this point, we can no longer remove someone from suspicion just because they're young. So for the last time, let me ask you that question that everyone's had since last night. Yesterday, who was the Beatrice who handed you that letter? Maria, don't dodge the question. Make it clear. Who gave you that letter? How many times do I have to tell you? It's Beatrice, the 1,000-year-old golden witch. If you want to know what she looks like, just turn around. See? She's right there. Beatrice is... Have I been good today? Yes, I've been pretty good. It's been a relaxing day. I had a good meal. I had a little nap. It's been good. Hope you're doing well too. Thank you again for coming. Don't mess with us, Maria! Enough, Jessica. Maria too. Don't you understand the situation? What are you hoping to gain by saying stuff like that? Stop stirring each other up pointlessly. I don't understand. Who do you all want the culprit to be? You only believe in Beatrice when you don't want to suspect one of your own. When you're trying to settle a grudge because someone who's close to you has been killed, only then do you want to believe in a human you can attack with violence and deny Beatrice. That's why you can't see her. Beatrice exists. You all can't see her. Silence! I don't want to label you as the culprit, but there's no longer any doubt you enjoy making this situation unpleasant and are providing assistance to the enemy. Then what will you do? Shoot me? I don't mind. Very soon the door to the Golden Land will be opened. Then all the dead will be resurrected. Right now, death is nothing to be afraid of. Mom, she really is suspicious. We can't keep her with us. But Aunt Natsui, please, calm down. There's no reason to shoot Maria. Please remain composed. The letter was meant to provoke us, but it's nothing to be afraid of. Even the culprit is scared of what will happen tomorrow. They're scared of the police. Right now, this island is free from the reach of the law, but that's only because it's isolated by this typhoon. Once the typhoon passes, the law will return. So you mustn't shoot. How can you stay so calm, George Nissan? One of those four is the culprit. No, maybe all four of them are working together. How can you stay so calm when one of these four might be the culprit who killed your parents? Even I have the desire to find the culprit and kill them, but that would be simple barbarism. I will leave the judgment of crimes to the law. So no matter how suspicious they are, you mustn't pull that trigger. I feel the same as George Aniki. Aunt Natsui, get a hold of yourself for a second. Anyway, it'd be bad to shoot. In times like this, I hear you should tilt your head back and say, "Stay cool," 3 times. Let me make this clear. Witches don't exist. Not on Rokujima, not in the Ushirimiya mansion. I declared as Ushirimiya Natsui, representative of the Ushirimiya family. There's no witch here. I won't accept Beatrice. No matter what you're planning, I won't let you lay one finger on my daughter or the rest of them. That's my duty as a mother and representative to the family. Those words were the final words of farewell. This settled everything. To protect her daughter, Aunt Natsui would regard any suspicious person as an enemy. The only reason George Aniki and I were standing on this side was because by coincidence we had a clear alibi regarding the letter. If I hadn't approached the portrait, I would also be at the other end of that gun barrel, treated like a criminal. But even though part of me thought that, part of me was thinking that chasing all the suspicious people from this room would finally guarantee our safety. Genji-san and Kumasawa-san and Dr. Nanjo, all of them were on grandfather's side. Maybe you could say that once Maria started blindly believing in Beatrice, she was also on grandfather's side. That's right, they're all suspicious. But is this really okay? If we throw out all the suspicious ones in such a lawless way, will we still have the right to defy the lawlessness of the witch? Hey, Lurked Emperor, welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming. Hope you're doing well. And the music in this visual novel is so good when they pump it up. Aunt Natsui didn't tell them to leave with her own words. but with wordless pressure, she induced them to say that themselves. Because if Dr. Nanjo didn't say those words, this cold silence would surely continue forever. Calm yourself, Natsui-san. Still, I understand your feelings well. I myself feel like there's something wrong with my head after all these strange, repeated incidents. So I understand well why you want to suspect us. If you really have nothing to do with this, then my actions now would be beyond rude. However, please understand just this once. Very well. Let's leave this room. What do you say, Genji-san? Shall we return to the parlor and continue our chess game? If that is what you wish, by all means. I don't want to. After all, this means we'll have to leave this room, knowing that the wolf is among us, right? I don't want to. Madam, please, forgive me. It was obvious what Kumasawa-san was trying to say. If she was innocent, then she was being ejected into dangerous territory along with the culprit. In the current situation, urging her to leave this room along with the suspects was almost exactly the same as getting her killed. However, Kumasawa-san really was suspicious, just for being the first one to discover that Kanin-kun had been murdered. At the time, everyone except Kumasawa-san had an alibi. Unless we could prove the existence of some contraption, or the existence of some 19th person, Kumasawa-san was by far the most likely suspect. I didn't want to believe it. However, Aunt Natsui and the rest of us were in such a difficult situation we couldn't help suspecting her as well. So we didn't say anything to stop Aunt Natsui from trying to oppressively chase them from the room. We had stopped her from shooting, but we were passively agreeing to chase the others out of the room. On top of that, Maria spoke to the fretful Kumasawa-san. It's okay. Beatrice is kind to those who respect her. You believe that Beatrice exists. So it will definitely be okay. I'll watch TV in the parlor. Let's watch it together. It's so boring here without TV. It looked like Kumasawa found Maria's roguish laugh very frightening. However, the three other people had agreed to leave the room. Kumasawa couldn't fight the flow and had to agree, crying as she went. Well then, Natsui-san. That will be all for tonight. Let us meet again tomorrow. You like how I do Maria's laugh? Thank you. Maybe I'm just good at doing creepy girl laughs. Yes. Please understand, at least for tonight. When the police come, all of us will surely apologize for our rudeness. You may play chess, but do it in a safe place if you can. Genji, I leave them in your hands. Certainly. Oh, it can't be helped, can it? They always say that the most frightening bears are those with their children. Genji, Kumasawa, my sincere apologies. Let us meet again tomorrow. Maria-chan too. Please forgive your cold aunt. I forgive you. Madam, the keys to this room. I will hand both over to you. Genji-san pulled 2 golden keys from his pocket and handed them to Aunt Natsui. And I will also hand over my bundle of keys to the inside of the mansion. He took out a bundle of about 10 keys of various shapes and handed it over. To the servants, those keys were probably proof of their position. Being placed in charge of those keys meant that they were trusted, relied upon. When they were forced to return them, it meant that they had lost that trust. Thinking about it that way, to Genji-san, who had worked here for a span of many years, there could be no greater shame. However, Genji-san's usual indifferent expression remained on his face. Genji, I had planned that after father passed away, I would reward you for many years of hard work and allow you to retire. To treat you like this makes me feel ashamed from the bottom of my heart. I have already received the master's favor. Everything I have done until today has been in repayment for that. Please do not worry over it. Well then, shall we, everyone? Good night to you all. Good night. Good night to you too, Badler. Ah, Maria. Wait a sec. Knowledge of guilt made me call Maria back. I groped around in my pocket and took out that scorpion keychain. This repels magic, right? Wear it. Didn't you say you dropped it? Back then, I got ticked off and just bluffed that I'd lost it. There's no way I'd lose the precious charm you gave me. Maria silently took the charm. I was unable to say anything after that. Well then, everyone, good night to you. We watched them leave, our expressions completely worn out, and we weren't even able to respond. Until the door closed and we heard the auto lock, we were unable to breathe. Then we were finally allowed to take a breath. After that, I noticed that Beatrice's letter, which I had been gripping the whole time and which was soaked with my sweat, actually had 2 sheets. The paper had been tightly stuck together, so I'd mistakenly thought there was only one. There were no characters on the second sheet. The thing drawn there was a magic circle, written with a red ink like blood. What's in the frog-shaped pouch? My friend likes to call it a snack pouch. So my friends like to joke that it's just full of snacks. Actually, travel pouches and like bag stuff are so useful, especially when you're traveling like outside of your hometown. Really useful to put all your stuff in. Just like how every magic circle up until then had been different, this magic circle is one I'd never laid eyes upon. Inside the circle, a larger triangle and a small triangle were fit together in a simple design. But just as before, there was writing in Hebrew, and it seemed clear that it held some kind of meaning. No ninja smoke bombs or anything? No. Not a ninja, unfortunately. I want to know what that could be. We had just chased Maria, the only person who could understand the meaning of magic circles, out of the room. I thought of this magic circle as Beatrice's second message. What does this magic circle mean? Damn it. After chasing out all the suspicious people, all we had to do was stay barricaded here until morning, and everything would probably be over. Once the typhoon has passed, when the seagulls cry, will everything be resolved? But the letter, which had unexpectedly appeared in the study, forced us to reject that naivety. It had made it very clear that if time ran out, it would mean the witch's victory. When time runs out, is the witch planning to take on the offensive? This time, is she planning to display some fearful magical power? Maybe something that could have been used to kill 6 adults at once? Wait, when is time supposed to run out anyway? I don't know anything. My bag contains Kirby treats? Hey, that's a good idea, yeah. Maybe I have some froggy treats for my froggy friends. With this, we should finally be safe. Finally. Definitely. Even as she said that, Natsu couldn't stop gripping that rifle. There was no release in the tension of her expression. Of course, none of us felt like breathing a sigh of relief. At least not until we could hear the cry of the seagulls once more. So like, do I keep live flies in this pouch? Maybe. I was watching videos on YouTube of people that take care of frogs, and they were talking about how they had to get used to liking insects because they always had to have live insects for the frogs. After we chased them out, nobody wanted to say anything. All of the suspicious ones had been driven away. Even though we knew there might be some innocence among them, we still did it. We chased them out of this paradise, where people don't have to suspect each other. But our motive for chasing them out was suspicion of one person towards another, the worst kind of crime for a human. If we'd accepted the existence of a 19th person, of the witch, then we all might still be talking face to face, trusting in each other. In that instant, we had agreed to chase out all the suspicious people. But had that been the right thing to do? During this endless silence, we could do nothing but be quietly tormented by that sin. But does Kirby eat and work like a normal frog? A mystery for the ages. Natsu faced the door without letting go of her rifle for even an instant, sitting far back in the sofa. She would probably spend the night staring at the door without a wink of sleep. George Aniki gazed through a gap in the closed curtains by the window, looking down at the courtyard and the mansion that surrounded it. I didn't know whether he was checking to see if a suspicious shadow would become visible through the window, or whether he was wondering to himself about something. Jessica was sitting sideways on the sofa next to Aunt Natsui with a dead expression on her face. And every once in a while, as though she just remembered something, she'd take out the inhaler she had used during her asthma attack and stick it in her mouth. I had just heard it from Aniki, but apparently Jessica liked Kanon-kun. It was apparently so vague that she hadn't realized it herself. You know, it's the kind of thing other people tend to spot before the person in question realizes it. Which means she might have first learned of her feelings when the person she liked died. It must have been so terrible, so sad. Come to think of it, Kanon-kun was the one who handed her that inhaler. Maybe she was remembering that. I was fishing around Grandfather's study, thinking I'd researched the meaning of the magic circle on the letter's second sheet. Even though we were shut up in here in a defensive position, my rebellious nature made me want to find some key, some way to resist. After all, we've got plenty of time before tomorrow morning. Who could fault me for how I used that time? No one else showed that much interest in this magic circle. Its meaning was unknown, and once we understood it, we were sure to find some message that would cause us unnecessary anguish. I should reveal all of Kirby's secrets and my secrets to you. I should reveal my secret move from whatever fighting game I'm from. That is yet to come. That is to be decided. Don't you worry. I felt the same way. However, I couldn't just ignore it, so I killed time by going through the motions of researching it. You sure are enthusiastic. Did you find anything that might serve as a hint? Not a thing. The first tough part is finding a book written in Japanese. Just how many languages could Grandfather read? He's incredible. Aren't you tired, Badler-kun? You should take a rest while someone else stays awake. Aunt Natsui said she'd stay up all night for us, but there's no way her body can handle that. We should take turns sleeping. Then you sleep first, Aniki. I'll keep researching till I get sleepy. You mean that magic circle just now? Yeah. We've got plenty of time to kill. I thought it'd be interesting to find out what kind of message Beatrice-sama put in it. Give it a rest. Mess around with stuff like that and you'll end up possessed by something weird. Don't worry. I've been certified by Maria. She said I've got no spiritual talent at all. Were we too cruel to Maria? Jessica, you mustn't think that now. But Mom, if Maria wasn't involved and there's a culprit besides her, then she's obviously a soft target for the murder. If she's killed because of this, then we've just left her to die. A gloomy silence settled once again. It looked like Jessica regretted letting her emotions take hold of her and snapping at Maria. She has always been like that, always acting tough and regretting it later. I understand how you feel, but Maria was in close contact with the culprit, and she might have been siding with them, talking like that over and over to further confuse matters. I am relieved that we chased them out. It's pretty harsh on Natsui. Couldn't it just have been the nonsense of a 9-year-old girl? It probably wasn't very convincing to her to hear it from me. I myself thought Maria was creepy on several occasions, even doubting her true nature. And when Maria was chased out of this room, I couldn't deny I felt some relief. If that is the case, then tomorrow we will apologize for what we did. I will take full responsibility for chasing them out of this room. This isn't something the rest of you have to worry about. I could feel a tragic determination in Aunt Natsui's words. To protect her own daughter, she had resolutely chased out the suspicious ones. And if, as a result, she had to watch the people who had unfortunately been suspected die, so be it. She was prepared to take full responsibility. Why does Maria have to keep saying stuff like that? She's bringing about her own ruin. I think the reason Maria-chan adores witches and magic so much might be Aunt Rosa. Aunt Rosa? What does she have to do with this? Didn't you realize it too, Badler-kun? Maria-chan's real father ran off somewhere a long time ago. Although Aunt Rosa tried to confuse the issue by saying he's on a foreign business trip. Talking about Rosa-san's family has become kind of taboo in the Ushiyumiya family. I think Aunt Rosa thought about remarrying, but I also believe Maria-chan may have become her shackles and made that quite difficult. After all, she sometimes got really emotional and hit Maria-chan. I agree with you there. It looked like Aunt Rosa was trying hard to like Maria. Which means that she didn't really like her. She might have thought of Maria as someone who stood in the way of her remarrying. I think that emotional rejection from her mother must have left some deep scars on her young heart. So she learned about this occult hobby from somewhere and immersed herself in it to bury the holes in her heart. Did you know? To Maria-chan, the image of a witch isn't negative at all. Remember yesterday at the beach when she showed us her notebook? Yeah. It was full of all those fun-looking scribbles. Yesterday, when we were down by the beach doubting the witch, Maria got all riled up and started explaining about witches. And not one of the pages has shown a picture of an ugly witch. They were all brightly colored, beautiful, cute witches who looked like they're having fun. There was absolutely nothing sinister about them like a boy might have imagined. They were beings adorned with beautiful dresses who grant anyone's dreams with their mysterious magic, and who made everyone happy. The sorrow of not being loved by her mother. Had Maria sought help from witches as beings who could give her happiness and save her? Someday, a witch would come and, using her wonderful magic, would bring Maria happiness. Even though she believed that, as she grew older, she had to face reality as her fleeting dreams were sliced to ribbons, one by one. If something claiming to be the witch of Rokenjima appeared in front of a girl like that, whispering that she'd take Maria to the Golden Land where Maria could be happy, now that it's come to this, I want to confess what's in my heart. Throwing out Maria-chan. No, Genji-san and the rest too. It's probably the wrong thing to do, I think. See, again, I love how multifaceted these characters are. Like, we see creepy Maria, and then we start talking about her backstory, we start to feel sad for her. Same with Kinzo, we think he's, like, creepy and weird, and we find out more about it, like, what we think his motivations could have been, and then you start to feel bad for her. Like, everyone's, like, flip-flopping back and forth, and you'll see that as a very common theme throughout this entire visual novel, is that, again, the characters, one character you could hate one moment, and then you could feel really bad for them and like them, and then you'll go back to hating them. Or you start liking them, and then you'll really hate them, and then you'll come back to liking them. It's really weird, and I really like it. Hey, Cycle Reaper, welcome to the stream. My amazing voice makes you want to go to sleep? Yeah, if you're tired, feel free to rest. This will all be archived later. Thank you for coming. It wasn't pleasant. Since Jessica had been the one to face them and slam them with words of rejection, her conscience must be tormenting her a lot right now. Then how do you all explain the letter? No one could have said it there except the 4 people standing behind us. I made sure of that with my own eyes. If those 4 are innocent, how was that letter placed in a closed room with 8 people? That's right. When you put it that way, those 4 really do seem suspicious. But it's all useless. Ugh, it's all useless. Useless? What is it? Right. It might not be worth anything anymore, but let me spin the chessboard around again. In other words, if one of those 4 really was the culprit, isn't that weird? That's right. Wasn't setting that letter openly on the table the same as confessing that one of them was the culprit? You're right, that is weird. If they were going to do it, you'd think they'd put it in the crack of the door, for example, to make it look like someone had slipped in from the outside. Of course, they should have known that they'd be suspected if they didn't make it look like the culprit was outside the room. Yeah, that's it exactly. If the culprit was one of those 4, setting that letter right in the middle of the table would be both risky and meaningless. But putting aside whatever trick was used to set it there, if we assume the culprit is someone other than those 4, in other words, someone who's outside the room, then they have a lot to gain from that letter. Enough, Badler-kun. It's meaningless to discuss such matters now. Not so you quickly guess what I was getting at. No, maybe she had thought of it long before I had, and had simply held her tongue. If the culprit's outside the room, then they'd be totally stuck the moment we shut ourselves up in a room like this. That's right. It's the same as my theory about how grandfather disappeared from this room, isn't it? That theory was that grandfather left the room of his own accord. If the culprit used some tactic to lure him out, and grandfather left of his own accord, then... Come to think of it, when we found the scorpion magic circle on the doorknob to the study, Maria said it herself. Beatrice couldn't get through this door, but she could induce someone to leave of their own accord. Which would mean we fell for the culprit's trap completely, and sent out some new potential sacrifices. Genji and the rest aren't fools. When they try to protect themselves, they should find the next safest place after this room. They will definitely be able to hide themselves there. Natsui hadn't answered the question. Natsui herself had realized that if the culprit wasn't in our group back then, that letter would make sense as a trap. However, it wasn't worth the risk of calling back the people she had once thrown out. To Aunt Natsui right now, her greatest and only duty was to protect the children. By her thinking, in order to do that, a few sacrifices were unavoidable. Hey, Aunt Natsui, let me say something a little harsh, okay? At that time, what if, by coincidence, Jessica had also been standing behind you? Would you have chased Jessica from the room too? It's true that a lot of brutal things have happened, but as a mother, you thought you should protect your daughter no matter what. Because of that duty, you chased them out, even though you knew you'd eventually be held responsible for it. It's not like I'm condemning that, but I was just thinking about what a great mother Jessica has. That's right. You've been dealing with these incidents since morning, and you've been pulling all of us along this whole time, without losing your composure. If you were all confused too, the rest of us would be in the culprit's grasp by now. So I think we all have to thank you. Thank you. So, what are you trying to say? Is that you want her to act as Maria's mother too? I always thought of Maria as a real little sister and adored her, and yet a few things happened and we got a little confused, and I've said a lot of mean things to her, hurting her. Mom, please, let's stay together with Maria. No, everyone. There was no culprit among us. The culprit in this case is the witch Beatrice, okay? So let's stop suspecting each other. Natsui closed her eyes for a short while. Was she coping with her throbbing headache again, or was she thinking of something? You are my precious daughter, the one I finally received a whole 12 years after I married my husband. I would become the worst kind of demon to protect you. That was some pretty strong language at the end there. She realized very well that her words were an idealized view of what a mother should be. But even so, she was strongly resolved to protect her daughter, even if she had to become a demon. But that was her guilty conscience tormenting her. Today's been so long. So many things happened in one day, and we've been driven into a corner so thoroughly. I wonder if we have the right to greet tomorrow the way we are now. There it is. I found it. It's this magic circle. Inside the book I'd been flipping through, I found the same magic circle that had been drawn on the second sheet of the letter. George Aniki peered at it as well. The magic circle name was the Third Magic Circle of Mars. The Hebrew written on it was from Psalm 77, verse 13 of the Old Testament. What God is so great as our God? The meaning of the magic circle was discord. Agitate internal divisions and cause the enemy to bring about their own downfall. Wait a sec. Seriously? Could there be a more fitting way to describe our current situation and mental state? We couldn't help but be stunned into silence. So this letter was a trap? How did they place it here? There wasn't anyone in this room except for the 8 of us, right? Yeah, Beatrice is a Discord mod, apparently. Anyway, let's ignore how it got in here for now. The culprit was after just one thing. They want to spread the seeds of doubt inside this impregnable room and use us to throw the sacrificial sheep out. In that case, they're after the people who went out of the room. Mom, what should we do? Those 4 are in danger. It wasn't surprising that Aunt Natsui remained unpleasantly silent. Even if this was all a trap by the culprit, even if the 4 who had been chased out of the room were in danger, it had nothing to do with the safety of the 4 people in there. And there was no way to prove the innocence of the 4 people we chased out. If we're willing to let them die, then we shouldn't leave this room no matter what. That way, it's safest. At that time, suddenly, the piercing sound of a phone rang through the room. It was the antique extension phone set on the table in Grandfather's study. It had rung right after we started talking about the letter being a trap. It was natural we think of it as an SOS from the ones we chased out. But then Aunt Natsui spoke. Why a phone call? The phone should be broken down and unusable. That doesn't matter. If that's Maria calling for help. If the problem with the phones was the culprit's work in the first place, then this call is probably... With that one sentence, the ring of the phone, which had once sounded like a scream for help, now started to sound like a ghastly lure from some unknown person. Aunt Natsui hesitated over whether to pick up the receiver. Let's pick it up, Aunt Natsui. The phones must have been fixed for some reason. It could still be an urgent call from Maria-chan and the rest. That's right. And if it actually is a call from the culprit, bring it on. Why don't we listen to what they've got to say? It's just a phone call. No matter what they babble through the receiver, it's not like they're gonna hurt you. If you don't pick it up, then I will. I will take it. Hello? I stretched out my hand to take the receiver, but Aunt Natsui grabbed it before I could reach. We all held our breath trying to figure out who the person on the other end of the phone was. But for a while, Aunt Natsui kept saying hello. A silent phone call. There's no way Maria and the others would do something so creepy. Which means... Could this phone call... possibly... really be? Natsui stopped repeating hello and strained her ears. Because she thought she heard something far away on the other end of the receiver. What was that? Huh? Is someone... singing? Yeah, there's no way Maria would do something so creepy. Are we talking about the same Maria? What do you mean? Singing? I don't know. Faintly, from the other side, other end of the phone, I can hear someone singing. I wonder what it could be. Give it here for a sec. Hello? I half forced the receiver from the stunned Aunt Natsui's hand and pressed it against my ear. At first I didn't hear anything, but because I had been told about it beforehand, I noticed. It sounded far away from the receiver, rather than someone speaking in a quiet voice. And it sounded like a girl singing a song. The voice did sound like Maria's, but that just made the situation even more inexplicable. At the very least, the one who had made the phone call hadn't been Maria. After all, Maria was singing some song far away from the receiver. In that case, the one who made the phone call should have been Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, or Dr. Nanjo. And yet, they weren't saying anything. Why? For what reason? The person who made this phone call. Who was it? Hey! Hello? Who is it? Answer me! Is that Maria singing? Answer me! What's happening? What is it? I don't know. All I can say is... this is probably a trap and Maria's in trouble. Natsui took the receiver again, but after yelling into it several more times, she realized she wasn't getting anywhere and hung up. After that, she dialed quickly. Then she clicked her tongue. That's right, if the phones are working, we should be able to reach the police. But judging by Aunt Natsui's reaction, the outside telephone line still didn't connect. Let's go. Even if we know it might be a trap, we still have to go. Yeah, definitely. Jessica, Aunt Natsui, stay here. While Aniki and I tried to dash out, Aunt Natsui stopped us. Hold it. I cannot let you go alone. I will go too. Jessica, wait here. Wait, so I'll be the only one left out? Nice try, but I'm going too. Yeah, it might be better that way. If the goal of that phone call was to split us up further, it wouldn't be a good idea to leave someone to watch this room. There's no time to argue. Let's all go. Aunt Natsui raised the rifle high and took the lead. I couldn't go unarmed myself. I found a 3-pronged candle stand and readied it. Although the pins on it used to fit candles were short, it was almost like a 3-pronged spear. Then, the four of us left the study. We left the study, which should have been the safest place inside the mansion. By doing this, we had been lured out, even though we had barricaded ourselves in a safe, closed room. Perhaps we were doing exactly the same thing Grandfather had done when he disappeared from that room. Maria! Where are you? Answer me! I listened closely, but I didn't hear anything. The mansion was vast, and since the passing typhoon was making its last stand, the sound of the rain was even noisier than before. Maria-chan said she wanted to watch TV in the parlor, right? Let's try going downstairs. That's right. Let's try there. Everyone, be mindful of your surroundings. Yeah. Without Natsui in the center, her rifle readied and her finger on the trigger, we moved in a group, our backs together, checking our surroundings in all directions. It was just as though the magic of that magic circle, designed to spread discord, had worked. We had split up and furthermore had been dragged out into dangerous territory. In other words, even now we were doing just what the culprit wanted us to do. This was a separate world where it wouldn't be odd for anything to so suddenly occur. Natsui nervously pointed the barrel of the gun at every dark spot and shadow. It felt like that motion was out of fear rather than caution. The rifle she held in her hand should have been the trump card that the culprit feared. You know, I've been thinking, it wouldn't be impossible to stick one of those ice picks into someone's chest, like in Kanenkun's case. But splitting the skull and sticking them in the forehead, like in my parents' case, wouldn't be that easy. You think the culprit had that kind of animal strength? They probably had some kind of weapon, a device that can shoot or pound in those ice picks. That handle was too short to be driven in that deeply by human strength alone. Either way, they have enough force to break through his skull. I heard Kanen's wound reach as far as his lungs. If you happen to see your opponent, don't go forwards. You mustn't move away from my back. Just how sinister and frightening was a weapon that could shoot those creepy ice picks. And could I do anything to combat it with just this candle stand in my hand? In the first murder, the culprit probably assaulted all four of our parents at once, as they discussed the inheritance problem in the dining hall. And there are four of us here now. Apparently I wasn't the only person thinking this. George Aniki, Jessica, and of course Aunt Natsui were stretching their senses to the utmost limit, in the highest and worst state of tension, slowly advancing one step then another. What have we done? Because of the seeds of doubt spread by that one letter, we threw Maria and the rest into the middle of this terrifying world. We finally reached the first floor. The parlor was just across the hall. When we listened carefully, we could hear it faintly. Maria's eerie singing voice. She wasn't singing naturally, as though she were in a good mood. She was singing mechanically, like she was at a graduation ceremony she'd been ordered to. The song she sang was just a common folk song, one that everyone had probably sung in school at one time or another. But why that in the middle of the night, alone with all her heart over and over? Why? Right after leaving the study, we had called out in loud voices asking Maria where she was. But this time no one said even a single word. We hid our breath and the sound of our footsteps and intensely focused on our surroundings to the point of being completely high-strung. We stepped forward. The door to the parlor was closed. We could hear Maria's singing voice through it. Aunt Natsui put her hand on the handle of the doorknob when George Aniki stopped her. I'll open the door. Aunt Natsui, Battler-kun, ready your weapons. Understood. Take care. They might attack as soon as we open it. George Nisan, watch yourself. Sure. Then I'll open it. Huh? He tried to open it, but immediately felt the hard resistance of the lock. Aunt Natsui took the bundle of keys from her pocket and gave them to George. There were about 10 keys and none of us had a clue which was which. Because of this, George had to fumble around loudly and test several of the keys. Since we had hidden our footsteps preparing to make a surprise attack on the room, this felt almost fatal. The whole time we could hear Maria's voice from the parlor, singing the same song over and over. It was like a broken, crazy cassette tape. We'd been in that room almost constantly since morning. All the frightening things had occurred outside that room. That had left us with the impression that only this room was safe. That baseless impression was quickly falling apart. It's open. Thank you. George-kun, Jessica, move behind me. Aunt Natsui, let's jump in at the same time and split up in different directions. If we just stand around after opening the door, those ice picks might fly through the center. I agree. Ready? I really wish I could say no. I readied myself. If they're gonna be throwing ice picks, I'll whack them with this candle stand. Go! Aunt Natsu and I rammed into the door before flying into the parlor, quickly splitting up left and right and searching the parlor for someone who might be waiting for us. But what our eyes landed upon was an incredibly strange sight. The parlor was stained with blood. This place, where we spent almost the entire day, where we pressed in together to protect ourselves from some unknown malice, had been stained with fresh blood and had become an ocean of blood. On the floor lay Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Dr. Nanjo, their entire bodies stained bright red with the blood. But the only way we could identify them was by their clothes. It was because... that's right. This is how the whole tragedy started. Their faces. Just like our smashed up parents in the shed, you couldn't tell where their eyes stopped and their noses began. It was as though they'd rudely plunged their faces into tomato pot pies, all squished up. And that wasn't all. Their bodies had other wounds. It was those demon ice picks. They were in Genji-san's stomach, Dr. Nanjo's thigh, no, his knee? That's right, of course it's his knee. In the epitaph, the sixth twilight was a stomach, and on the seventh twilight, the knee was gouged. So after seeing one of them stuck near Kumasawa Bachan's calf, I couldn't help masochistically laughing. That's right. On the sixth twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the seventh twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the eighth twilight, gouge the leg and kill. Now even the eighth twilight is over. And the next one, the ninth twilight, what was it again? Maria was there. She was facing the wall, the inner part of the room, standing stock still, completely alone. She faced away from this horrible scene, standing by the wall, singing her song over and over. There was nothing else in the room. Just the corpses of the three who had been brutally killed, and the phone receiver, which was still off its hook, proving that this was the room the call had come from. Just that and Maria, her back to the scene, and she kept on singing while facing the wall. We couldn't even scream at this bizarre scene. We could only stare, shocked with our mouths hanging loosely open. Maria? Jessica called out to her, but Maria showed no reaction. Alone, she kept singing, on and on. We had come here trying to save Maria from some approaching danger. So now that we found her, we should have been running up to Maria, hugging her, joyous that she was safe. And yet not one of us could do that. Everyone thought it, but they couldn't say it. After all, because that's right. Even if that's crazy, no, it couldn't be. Maria, stop singing. Are you listening? At some point, Aunt Natsui and I pointed our weapons at Maria's back. I yelled at Maria in a violent voice, but there was no reaction. She just kept singing. With the candle stand still ready, I ran up to her and violently slammed my hand down on her shoulder. Then I pulled on her shoulder, forcing her to turn around. Maria's small body was quickly pulled down and fell. And as though unhappy at having her singing interrupted, Maria looked into my face with her usual expression. Even in this gruesome situation, she was just like normal. Maria, what is this? Who did this? Beatrice. Cut that crap! I threw the candle stand I'd been holding against the wall. The violence of that reckless sound should have gone straight to Maria's heart. But Maria's expression didn't change at all. Quit it, Battler-kun, Maria-chan. This time you should have seen the face of the culprit who killed these three. Was the culprit the same Beatrice who gave you the letter? Beatrice. Well, in that case, it's certain. There's a 19th person. Beatrice does exist. Then, Maria, will you at least tell me this much? How did they kill these three people? What did they use to kill them in such a brutal way? I don't know. How could you not know? It happened in this room! Are you trying to tell me you were so absorbed in singing you didn't notice? Calm down, Battler-kun. Maria-chan, talk to me, okay? George Aniki, as he always did, crouched down next to Maria so that their eyes met and talked to her very kindly. Maria-chan, why were you facing the wall and singing? Beatrice said to face the wall and keep singing for a long time. So did Beatrice come here? Were Genji-san and the rest still alive then? Everyone came into the parlor together and sat down. Genji-san made sure to lock the door. It was locked when we got here, but then how did Beatrice get into the parlor? Beatrice is a witch, so locks don't matter. She turned into butterflies and came in through the crack in the door. Huh? Calmly joking at a time like this? Like hell that happened. What are you saying? You can't believe it. That's why I didn't want to say. No matter how I say it, you won't believe it. Beatrice is a witch. She can do anything with her miraculous magic. That's why Beatrice doesn't care whether a door is locked or not. And then, after Beatrice appeared, what happened to everyone? Beatrice talked to us. She said grandfather's study was protected by a powerful force, and she couldn't enter no matter what she did. So she told us she'd select 3 sacrifices from the 4 people in the parlor. Everyone said, no way. Kumasawa-san kept saying, no way, no way. But Beatrice chose. And when she did, Beatrice said, I'd be fine. Why do you think? It's because of that scorpion charm with the 5th magic circle of Mars. The one Battler used to pray for my safety. The one he put his feelings into. Because of that power, Beatrice couldn't do anything to me. And me alone. So she decided to use the other 3 as sacrifices. After that, Beatrice spoke. Come, face the wall and sing a song for me. You will sing lots and lots of songs, so no matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you won't hear, you won't hear, you won't know. Come, sing lots of fun songs for me. So I was singing the whole time, over and over, so I didn't hear anything, didn't know at all. And then all of you came. Are you asking us to believe that? You think we're stupid? Then who will you suspect this time? Will you suspect me? Gonna try killing me right here? Even if you do that, Beatrice won't stop existing. Now the 8th twilight is over and Beatrice will revive. Are you serious? I've had enough of that talk. As if witches could exist, as if I'd let myself get tricked. I won't accept it. Beatrice doesn't exist. I definitely won't accept it. So I won't let her exist. I won't let her revive. The legend will remain a legend forever. I won't acknowledge something like that. Quit it, Battler. It's not like Maria killed them or let them die. Beatrice came and Maria had to obey, was unable to resist. Huh? Aunt Natsui? She isn't here. Huh? What? Mom, where did she go? Just now, she left by herself, reading a letter. A letter? That makes sense. The culprit must be so exhilarated now. We've reached the 8th twilight. They might have left a letter so they could brag even more. We were so wrapped up in questioning Maria, we forgot to look for a letter. But even as well-armed as she was, why had she left the room by herself in this dangerous mansion after reading it? Jessica tried to chase after her and tugged at the handle of the door, but it resisted strangely and wouldn't open. Mom! Mom! What's going on? Open up! Open up! It was only natural. Natsui had picked up the candle stand, which Battler had thrown at the wall and which had fallen to the floor. She had then skillfully wedged it between the doorknobs on the double doors like a bolt, holding them closed. The intricate design of the candle stand caused it to get caught solidly, and it really did make a sturdy seal on the door. The tragic scream of a daughter for her mother. Did it reach Natsui's ears, or not? Really effective reading at this whole part? Thank you. Thank you. I take pride in my reading ability. Natsui's figure was alone in the entrance hall. It was the place decorated by the portrait of Beatrice. Natsui threw down Beatrice's last letter, the one she had read in the parlor, readied her rifle again, and in a voice that rang clear yelled in the massive space that was the entrance hall. I am Ushirimiya Natsui, representative of the Ushirimiya family. Show yourself! Golden Witch Beatrice. The entrance hall was dimly lit. Other than a faint light which shone on the center of the room, everything was blotted out by the jet black darkness. In that darkness, butterflies glittering in gold squirmed, twinkled, and sneered. Natsui gave one more huge gulp and pointed the cold barrel of the gun at the golden butterflies. So you have finally shown yourself. I still can't believe that something like you really exists. But that isn't a problem. Both I, who bear the title of representative to the Ushiyama family, and you who claim to succeed the headship of the Ushiyama family, are here right now. At this point, whether you are witch or not is a trivial matter. Come, let us settle this. Which of us will truly succeed the Ushiyama family? I, Ushiyama Natsuhi, or you, Beatrice? Allow me to respectfully accept your request for a duel. The gold butterfly slowly formed a human shape, which walked into the dim light. Natsui readied the rifle and glared. The witch raised her golden staff overhead and laughed. Natsui's finger slowly squeezed the trigger. And go! Battler made an all-out dash at the door and rammed into it, crushing the candle stand that had been barring it and making it possible for a big gap to be opened in the door. He kept kicking the candle stand through the gap, and the door was finally released. At that time, they heard it. They certainly heard the crisp sound of gunfire ring out once. Mom! Mom! Jessica-chan, you mustn't run off by yourself. Was that the sound of a gun just now? Did Aunt Natsui shoot? At whom? At the culprit? The noise had come from the entrance hall. At the entrance hall, it looked like a stage. Like the heroine of a tragedy on the ground and bathed in light. Arrayed in the beauty of that silence, Aunt Natsui lay face up, crumpled on the floor. Half-crazed, Jessica ran up to Aunt Natsui. On Aunt Natsui's forehead, it was almost as though a sparkling shard of pigeon blood ruby had been placed there. And from it, one stream of blood makeup passed by her eye and began to traverse her face. The faint smell of gunpowder smoke came from the barrel of the rifle Aunt Natsui still grasped. Hey, Kua Ghost, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by. I hope you're doing well. Huh? Then... she... shot? herself? In the forehead? Why? Mom! 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 Ah! I don't get it. Why did Aunt Natsui run away alone? And why did she shoot through her own forehead? Ria-chan, Aunt Natsui left the room after reading a letter, right? There's no letter here. Damn it! What did Aunt Natsui read? And why was she lured out here? I don't know. I don't know. Who cares about that? What the hell? Why did she kill herself? Why did she leave me all alone? Ah! Jessica clung to her mother's corpse, crying earnestly. My body was consumed with anger I didn't know what to do with, and I snatched the rifle from Aunt Natsui's hand. I spun around, pointing the barrel of the gun into the darkness on all sides as though I was pointing a light from a lighthouse, trying to find the culprit. George Aniki, even in this situation, was trying to calmly figure something out, but that must have been a fruitless effort. And only Maria was completely indifferent. So this is all supposed to be some kind of predetermined fate? No, that's not it. This is all a prelude to a wonderful world. The door to the Golden Land will finally open. On the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive, and none shall be left alive. And on the 10th twilight, at Journey's End, You shall attain to the power of the Golden Land's treasures once and for the last time. With this, everything is over, Beatrice. Congratulations! Congratulations! So lead me to the Golden Land you told me of, right now. There, all the dead will be revived and even lost love will be restored. So in Maria's eyes, it's just as though all of today's tragedies didn't happen. It's as though all the time she spent deprived of love never happened. Stop it! What's so fun? What's to be congratulated? There were 18 people on this island. 14 are dead. Only the 4 of us are left. I'm definitely not gonna die. Until the night is over. No, until the typhoon passes and the seagulls gather again at the harbor, I'm definitely not going to die. I'll stay alive. I'll stay alive no matter what. Give it up, Badler. Guns are useless against witches. Survival and all that doesn't matter because it's over. The journey has already ended. See? Look at the clock. Huh? The clock. Hearing those words, I looked at my wristwatch. Both needles were almost touching near the top. Very soon, it'll be 12 o'clock at night. In other words, 24 o'clock. When you think about it, isn't 24 o'clock a strange time? It can be called 24 o'clock, it could also be called 0 o'clock. It's the hour at the culmination of the previous day, and at the same time, it's hour 0 as the next day begins. Beatrice! Maria suddenly called out happily and ran towards the darkness. It was almost as though Beatrice was somewhere in that darkness and Maria was running up to her. As Jessica hugged her mother's corpse, as George Aniki stood there confused, I looked down at the barrel of the rifle, gazing into the darkness. The space in front of Beatrice's portrait lay in that direction. And the thing Maria was running up to was the portrait's subject. You've got to be kidding me. This is just impossible. Like I'd fall for something like this. Witches don't exist. I won't accept it. Something like you shouldn't exist. Because it's a human world. You think I could accept something that's not human? I definitely won't accept it. When I pulled hard on the rifle's lever, the cartridge was ejected, fell on the floor, and a new cartridge was loaded. Then I sighted the witch down the barrel. Maria turned around. Still clinging to the golden witch, she turned around. Didn't I tell you it was meaningless? Mere lead bullets are meaningless against Beatrice. Humans are so stupid, aren't they? I won't accept the existence of witches. Who are you? Just try moving one step. Just try moving one finger. I'll blast you away. As the witches laughed. Even the large clock in the hall joined in on their laughter. It was probably telling us that the time was 24 o'clock. It was both a tone telling us that we had reached the culmination of this day, and a tone informing us that all had returned to nothing. The rule that the witch would win when time ran out had already been revealed. Badler, George, Nichan, and Jessica, the journey has ended, and the witch has revived. See? And none shall be left alive. The witch shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures. One shall be all the gold from the Golden Land. One shall be the resurrection of all the dead souls. One shall be the resurrection of the love that was lost. One shall be to put the witch to sleep for all time. Sleep peacefully, my beloved witch, Beatrice. The storm passed, and the leaden clouds that had enshrouded the island for so long cleared away. From the rifts between the clouds, sunbeams shone, and yesterday's storm seemed like a lie. Just as someone had wished, the seagulls returned to the harbor once again and let their lively cries be heard. Afterwards, the police came and conducted an investigation of the scene. The corpses of the children, who were thought to have survived until the very end, were never found. However, because of the body parts that were discovered and the unimaginably gruesome nature of the scene, the police were forced to conclude that the chances of survival for any of the 18, even the children, seemed hopelessly dim. Just how gruesome was the banquet of the witch? And how beautiful was the Golden Land? They were the only ones who got to hear that tale. No tales were told to those humans who arrived after the banquet was over. The best they could imagine might have happened during those 2 days. However, the witch was fickle. She made a point of leaving behind this tale, which didn't need to be heard, and it was allowed to spread. Then many years later, a strange wine bottle that had drifted on the waves to the pier of the neighboring island was pulled out by a fisherman. Inside was a thin, tightly rolled notebook fragment written upon in cramped small letters. Written there was this tale. Through this notebook fragment, people will finally learn the truth of the mysterious and riddle-filled 2-day period that started on October 4th, 1986. This incident was later called by many names, such as the Rokkenjima mass murders, though dilettantes from around the world would know that the witch legend serial murders. Lovers of the occult claimed it was the result of an immoral ceremony that sealed off the island, and those 2 mysterious days were savagely embellished with many different interpretations. The story began to spread far and wide. However, not one of those interpretations approached the truth. Furthermore, while the notebook fragment describes this mysterious incident, it does not reveal the truth of what happened here, or perhaps even the writer didn't know what the truth was. According to the writer, her name was Ushirimiya Maria. Incidentally, as a result of the all-out police investigation, part of Maria's body, a piece of her jaw, was discovered. It was one of those rare instances where a corpse was identified thanks to dental records. At that gruesome scene, there have been many body parts that couldn't be identified as belonging to any specific person, so it's probably fair to say this jaw was an extremely fortunate find. Because this jaw had been separated from his body, the police judged her chances of survival to be hopelessly dim, although none of her other body parts were found. And so let us conclude this tale with the final section of the notebook fragment Ushirimiya Maria left behind. By the time you read this, I will probably be dead, although there may or may not be a corpse. You who have read this, please find out the truth. That is my only wish. Ushirimiya Maria. To this very day, the truth of the witch legend serial murders has not been brought to light. Yeah, I'm like speed reading because it's scrolling a little bit faster than I want. First game, Legend of the Golden Witch results. Kraus, Rudolph, Kyrie, Rosa, Shannon, Goda died on the first twilight, chosen by the key of the Golden Land, and offered up as sacrifices. Ava and Hideyoshi died on the second twilight, pierced through the forehead by the stake of Asmodeus and Beelzebub. Kinzo died on the fourth twilight, stabbed by the stake of Mammon. Kanon died on the fifth twilight, stabbed by the stake of Satan. Genji stabbed by the stake of Lucifer, Nanjo by the stake of Belphegor, and Kumasawa by the stake of Leviathan. The witch Beatrice revived on the ninth twilight. Natsui died on the ninth twilight as the witch praised her nobility and granted her the honor of a duel. George, Jessica, and Maria missing on the 10th twilight. After they acknowledged the existence of the witch and prostrated themselves, the witch invited them to the Golden Land. Badler died on the 10th twilight. Will the witch invite this man who denied her existence to the Golden Land? The witch will praise the wise and should bestow 4 treasures in the Golden Land. George lost his lost fiancée. Jessica chose the boy she liked and lost. Maria chose the lost love of her mother. Sleep peacefully, Beatrice. Let nothing disturb your slumber ever again. The winner is the Golden Witch Beatrice. Time ran out before even one of the 18 people could solve the riddle of the gold. All 18 died. When the seagulls cried, none were left alive. Hey Minri, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by. You've come just in time to reach the end of the credits. Good to see you though. I'm really happy to see you. Thank you. Minri is an amazing artist. Go check him out. The Golden Witch has prepared a gift for you in commemoration of your stay. You can find these new features on the title screen. So, that was quite a ride, eh? I bet that didn't end the way you thought. Did you think of any clues? Any idea who the culprit was? Why it happened? Anything? However, you know, because I've said this before, this is only episode 1. There's 8 episodes. You might be wondering, well, Kiro, if everyone's dead, how can there be 8 episodes to this game? Well, very good question. At the end of every episode, there is something here called the tea party. And the tea party is basically like a epilogue. Every episode has a tea party, and some episodes the tea party is very short, and some are a little bit longer. For this one, this tea party explains a little bit more, and I think you'll get a general idea of how these visual novels work once we watch it. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to end the video here because I want to segment the tea party into its own episode. However, on Twitch, we're going to continue the stream and watch this tea party so we can get an idea of what's going on. After the tea party, I'll talk a little bit more about the game because I don't want to... I feel like if I talk about it now, I might accidentally spill something that I'm not supposed to. So, we will continue with this epilogue. If you're watching on YouTube, we will see you next time.